Another question that was asked during the webinar, the workshop was, when you're working with a composite report, how do you bring individual scores into the discussion? First thing I'll say about this is it's really personal preference in terms of how you want to do it. Some people don't really bring them in at all. Some people use them a lot. It's why we have it in the appendix side of the report where you can bring in the frequency distributions, which I'll talk about more in a second, but it's not integral to the report itself. It's in that appendix. So it's you can use it if you want, or have it as reference if you want, or don't really go there if you don't want to. First thing I'll say is, if you do it the way that, I really recommend, or MRG really recommends, it's, you've done the individual work before you get into the room with the group, right? So everyone will have a really good understanding of what their scores are before you're in the team development session. So that's really important, I would say. If you're in the room, doing some team development work and people aren't really clear about what their individual scores are or what their report says about them, they're going to spend a lot of time wondering, what does this mean for me? Instead of being engaged in the group development work. So it's really, really important to do that work up front, so they're not asking themselves that question or being distracted during the team development work where they can't really engage because they're so curious about what it is that this means for them. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second is it really depends on the purpose, right? If you're in a working session or a team development session where it's really about we're being better together or potentially trying to utilize shared leadership, then absolutely it makes sense to bring in the individual scores, right? Potentially you've identified a particular area of concern for the group, and at that point you bring in the individual scores to really talk about who the group can lean on to be effective in that particular area, in that particular theme, or what they want to improve on. Because again, not everybody will probably be low in whatever it is that you're trying to, work on. So, bringing that person into the equation might be helpful. The second thing potentially could just be a general usage and a general understanding about where does the group really lie on this specific behavior. And that's when you would bring in the frequency distributions. It can give a clearer picture in terms of what are the prevailing characteristics, behavioral characteristics of the group. It takes the median, I would say, to a whole nother level, right? And it will show you that frequency distribution will really show you, where are I'll call it the clusterings. And some, I know some consultants and some organizations really like to understand what the frequency distribution for the behavior means for them. The other thing I would say here is potentially, a qualitative debrief, right? So, you will have done your work with the individuals beforehand, but the group sessions potentially are a nice opportunity to get some qualitative information, right? Some qualitative feedback. You as the group rated me this on self, and I'm curious, can you talk to me a little bit more about this in terms of how you're seeing me? I understand the number, but just talk to me about this. And so some people will be really curious in the group to get some further feedback for themselves to sort of round out the LEA 360 process. It also can be, in terms of that qualitative side, it can be enough further exploration in terms of understanding ourselves better, right? So it might not be a specific person who wants the feedback, but you can engage the group with, this is the frequency distribution for this set of behaviors, and this is what this means for you. And potentially at that point, you can get people to speak about what their scores might be or where they would sit on a particular behavior, and then get a discussion going in terms of what does this mean for me? What does it mean for how I interact with you? What does this mean for the group overall? So it really can take the discussion to a whole nother level of depth in terms of how is the group really perceiving, understanding, and working together. And if that's really the intention in terms of understanding, how we're showing up as the group, as a group, and how potentially can we improve in that process, I think then bringing in those frequency distributions and bringing in those individual scores is really helpful. Those are the key ones that come to mind for me. I don't think it's an exhaustive list. I think there are many, many different ways that you could bring in the individual level scores, but those are the ones that come to mind for me immediately and are really predominant. So I hope that's helpful.